For a couple of years now, Disney has been making remakes of their most beloved and well-remembered IPs. Mainly, those made in the 90s during what is commonly called the Disney Renaissance, the period in which they had their biggest hits after having several financial failures. As a big fan of those movies, at first I was curious and actually excited to see some of my favorite childhood films come alive with live action and CGI. But after watching any of those films, there is always this feeling of having experienced something of no substance, some soulless product made with no artistic merit or any sort of magic that made the original films special. So, why is it that after being hated by critics and most audiences, these films are still being made? Well, of course, because they are commercial successes. But how is that happening? These remakes have been quickly forgotten and are no longer watched by almost anybody, while the originals have been around for decades and are still viewed over and over again. Let's go to the root of the problem and understand why these movies, despite making millions at the box office, are ultimately a letdown and fail in every single aspect where the originals succeeded. Every time a studio wants to create another film, the idea has to come from someone. A person or a group of people have to come up with the idea of making said movie. In the case of Disney remakes, someone could have said, well, we have this source material, just like the people who made the animated films had it, as most of them are based on legends, novels, or fairy tales. Let us take this and bring something new for the next generation of moviegoers. So far, so good. Remakes have been around for decades and have been great. So what is the problem? The obvious reason these remakes are made is because of money. And which is the way to gather the biggest pile of cash? Well, create something that is both attractive for new audiences as well as nostalgic for the older generations. Let's say that the animated version of The Lion King was just released on theaters today. Probably very few people would go, and most would go just to take their children to watch something. But hey, what happens if we take that and make it a live-action film? It immediately becomes something more mature, so you don't have to be ashamed for watching cartoons. And because it's Disney, the friendly family company that works with the same government that puts their own people in concentration camps among other devious practices, then of course you can take your kids with you. After all, you enjoyed the movie as a kid, so why wouldn't they love this version? This is because 2D animation has been relegated to a genre, more than a medium. Whenever we see something in traditional animation, we assume it's a kid's cartoon, which is not necessarily the case. Animation has been used in extraordinary ways to create content for more mature audiences. There is a reason some films are done in animation. They can explore and expand the limits of reality and imagination. They can bring colors and shapes to life that could not be possible in live action without it feeling uncanny. In the animated Mulan, for example, we have her make a zipline with a lamp after jumping from a burning building, and we as an audience just cheer in excitement. She buries an entire army in the snow, and we see groundbreaking animation to make it feel larger than life. In the remake, every time she makes an impossible kickflip, it just feels like we are watching The Matrix. She can dodge arrows whenever the plot finds it convenient. You buy into the fact that the entire army never found out she was a woman in the animated version because we suspend this belief. In the live action, you have an attractive woman in great shape facing back from one of his fellow soldiers and he never notices. Taking an animated film and trying to bring it to a live setting limits the capacity for storytelling, which brings me to my next point. We all know what happened in the Lion King remake. On paper, we actually got the same. Amazing animation, because face it, it was still animation, but none of the heart. Making the exact same story with real animals made it so painful to watch. We didn't get to see the tears coming out from Simba when his father died. We only saw a scared cat with a weird voice walking around the lion's corpse. We, human beings, need to see human-like traits and emotions to empathize and understand the characters. The nuances of Scar expressions or Rafiki's antics cannot be found in the remake, which is why these characters were so dumbed down. The shots, the gags, the change in colors and bursting into song, they all felt so weird. It just left me wanting to watch the original to eliminate the sour aftertaste this film left. The characters were, for the most part, interesting, just like in 1992. The music was amazing, just like in 92. The story was great, just like in 92. Everything you can point to about the movie that was actually good was also in the original version. The rest was just worse. That movie was a complete carbon copy of the original. So when I heard Mulan would deviate from the animated film and focus on the actual legend of Mulan, I thought we would finally get the remake we deserved. A film that would do its own thing while also paying respects to the source material. What we got instead was way worse. Don't get me wrong, I have to respect the guts it took to take a riskier road and not make a carbon copy as the rest of the remakes have been for the most part. But don't disrespect the source material like that. The 1998 Mulan was about an inexperienced woman who wouldn't be satisfied with the norms imposed to her by society. She wanted to demonstrate her worth and bravery and save his father's life in the process. She faces impossible odds. She struggles, she is constantly put down, but ultimately perseveres, and that is why we root and care for her. That is what makes her character someone to look up to, admire, and remember. On the other hand, the new Mulan is basically a Jedi, born with the Force. My bad. So she is a badass kung fu fighter right from the start. She has no flaws, and her arc is just learn to embrace your womanhood, ride into battle with your hair down and no armor, and just kick ass. Like what? I've heard over a dozen times the same reasons, or dare I say excuses, for these films. Sorry Disney fanboys, but no, you just can't say this movie brings the story to a whole new generation, when many of the most iconic Disney movies have been around since the 1940s and 50s, and are still widely regarded as timeless classics. This is because those films truly used the medium to make stories that spoke about archetypes, human nature, good and evil, and themes that spoke to our hearts. If kids these days still watch those classics, why make the same but worse? Would you paint a more photorealistic version of the Mona Lisa and claim it is a better and modern version of the original? I don't think so. Some people also seem to have this belief that more realistic movies are better because animation is a cheap medium from another past age and it's already outdated. We have more advanced technology now, and CGI is the latest trend, so it's natural people don't want to see traditional animation anymore. Well, just watch what happened to the latest film released by Studio Ghibli. Yes, this happened. A studio known for its breathtaking visual storytelling decided to explore another medium, and the result was mediocre at best. But don't just take my word for it. Brad Bird, director of movies you probably know and love, clearly explains how animation takes the essential characteristic of a character and brings it up front.
The reason to do it is caricature. That's what animation is great at. And caricature is a word that's often used derogatorily, but actually it means reducing something to its essence. So he would do a drawing of a person, and the drawing of the person would look more like the person than the person did. And you're just going, how is that? It's because they took what was distinctive about the person and emphasized it, and took away the things that didn't emphasize it. So it becomes this, it's almost like boiled down to its essence. Well, animators do that not only with the style of how something looks, but how it moves.
Imagine trying to do this with actors or CGI. We don't want realism. We don't need realism in movies where there is talking furniture or animals. Animation can do virtually anything. No budget constraints in terms of cast, shapes, or sounds. Animation does not follow the rules of reality. You can defy physics, you can add gags and movements that live action films just can't have. Just take a look at this comparison between the fight scenes in the live-action movie of Avatar: The Last Airbender and the cartoon that was released years before.
This is fucked. This is not right. This is not cool. This is fucking bullshit. This is fucking bullshit. This is fucking bullshit.
Or how in Aladdin, the cave was this huge tiger face and the treasures were golden lit, while the remake was, well, photorealistic. One last thing that really gets in my nerves is the singing. For the original movies, they would bring actual Broadway singers, people of remarkable talent with the most amazing voices to bring these characters to life. Here, well, we have Emma Watson and some autotune, but that was just the icing on the cake. Like I said before, this does not seem to be a dying trend. People go by the millions and pay to see these movies only to leave mostly disappointed like a masochist. So, we get what we deserve. Some people think there is no more creativity left in Hollywood, but I say otherwise. There are a great amount of amazing directors and screenwriters out there. The problem is that it is extremely expensive to get a movie made, and it is a great bet. So studios like Disney prefer to keep shareholders happy by placing their money on the safest bet with the greatest return. But that strategy will only work for so long, because what got them on top in the first place was a willingness to take risks and create something of actual worth, something that mattered and would stand the test of time. A proper remake would be a movie that grabs the source material, original and maybe even their own film, and create something new. Take The Hunchback of Notre Dame, for example. The movie has a very serious subject matter that could easily be translated into a live-action setting, removing the more unreal aspects like the gargoyles, having a more lengthy script that explores the characters and their motivation without making them flawless or unsavory. Special effects are just a tool, a means to an end, not an end themselves. Maybe someday we will have a movie like that. But as for today, we still have crappy but money-making movies that just leave you wondering why you didn't watch the animated version instead.
People think of animation only doing things where people are dancing around and doing a lot of histrionics, but animation is not a genre. And people keep saying, the animation genre. It's not a genre. A Western is a genre. Animation is an art form, and it can do any genre. You know, it can do a detective film, a cowboy film, a horror film, an R-rated film, or a kid's fairy tale. But it doesn't do one thing. And next time I hear, oh, what's it like working in the animation genre? I'm gonna punch that person.
Thank you guys for watching. If you like our content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, click the links in the description below so you follow us on social media for more awesome film-related content.